Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whenever you're watching this, know that I do appreciate it. Um, I This topic is a little bit difficult for me. It's a little bit difficult for me because I'm sorry, I need to adjust this fan. It's a little bit difficult for me because when the topic came to me some months ago, it was supposed to be a general thing. At least that's what I thought. It was supposed to be a general thing. And then this morning, while I was washing dishes, I got the revelation that I needed to be open and transparent about some things, some places of pain for me. And this is, I say places of pain, but this is really one place at this moment. I mentioned a couple others, but this is really one more specific place for me. So the topic of today is speaking from a place of pain. And I keep looking that way because my phone is actually sitting right there with the blog right there. I have not yet posted it, but I will by the time I make this video go live, because I of course need to put the link to the video, or to the blog rather, I'm sorry, in the post, or in the, you know what I'm saying, in the video. Anyway. So, speaking from a place of pain, for me, there have been several spots in my life that have been very painful. The one that I'm speaking to directly today is the pain of depression. And how I have dealt with it over the span of years that I've realized I've had it, or battled it. But also I speak about my mother in the blog. So when my mom died in 2015, she was 62 years old, and she died 10 days after her 62nd birthday, 2 days before Christmas. And when she passed, it was suddenly. It was painful, but it was painful not just because she was my mom and she passed. It was painful because she was my mom, she passed, and she passed unhappy. She passed unfulfilled. She passed depressed. She passed because she passed and she had not lived out her purpose. She had not fulfilled her purpose in life. And for various reasons she had not. She was a brilliant woman, very intelligent, but dumbed herself down so as not to have others look at her in a strange way. And I'm guilty of having done that myself a few times. I've dumbed myself down so that men specifically would not be intimidated by me. She did the same thing. She did the exact same thing. She dumbed herself down so that men would not be intimidated by her. She died in her addiction, not being fully 100% recovered. She battled addiction from the time, oh gosh, I think I was 5 years old when I realized that she drank. And I was probably about 8 or 9 when I realized that she was an addict, not knowing at that time what an addict was, but knowing that something wasn't right. And she battled that for years. She battled addiction for years. She tried her best to come out of it several times, and she would get clean and be awesome for months at a time. And at one point she had been clean for a couple of years and then somehow got back into that lifestyle. And when she died in that lifestyle. She just traded one addiction for another. And I know that she was unhappy. I know that she was unhappy, not because she said it, but because of the way she behaved. She tried her best to make it appear as if everything was all right, but we knew, of course, we knew better. But she didn't live the way that she was purposed to live, and she knew that as well. She believed the lies that the enemy had told her. She believed that she wasn't good enough. She believed that there was no point or purpose to her life. She believed that no one would forgive her. She believed that she couldn't forgive herself. She believed everything but the truth about who she really was. My mom was a trained phlebotomist, and she did that for a couple of years when I was younger, and when her addiction was full blown, she walked away from that, and held various jobs from that point on. And in the last 3 years of her life, she really couldn't work at all. She just didn't have the health and strength to work a full-time or even a part-time job any longer. And when she died, that was a wake-up call for me. I knew what my purpose was prior to her death. Years before her death, I knew what my purpose was. But I just wouldn't walk in it, which is one of the reasons why I end all of my videos and all of my posts with remembering to walk in your purpose, because it was something that I would not do for years, and something, quite honestly, that I still hesitate a little bit to do, not by choice. Well, no, I take that back. It is by choice, because I know what I need to do and I'm not doing it. So that is why my saying to you, remember to walk in your purpose, is so important to me. Because there are times when I choose not to walk in mine. That's just not, who is that benefiting? No one. My purpose is to help people fulfill their life's purpose. My purpose is to help people to walk in their purpose. My purpose is to encourage others and uplift them. And I do that to a degree. And it's time out for that. Quite honestly, it's time out for that. So when, years before she passed, after my first marriage, I got the revelation. God spoke to me and said I needed to write my life story. And I said, sure, why not? And I started writing my life story, and then I had to stop because I was doing it for the wrong reason. And I knew that I was doing it for the wrong reason. I was writing at that point out of a place of pain, and instead of a place of healing. And when I realized that that's what I was doing, I had to ask God to give me a reprieve. Allow me to come back to that assignment a little bit later, because I knew that if I had written it the way I wanted to write it, in the state of mind and the emotion that I was in, that it would hurt so many people. And that's not what I wanted to do. It would hurt. It would have hurt my mother. It would have hurt my father. It would have hurt my grandparents. It would have hurt my children. And that's just not what I wanted. And it is going to still, to a degree, hurt some people, but not to the extent that it would have had I written it then. These people will be hurt because they will hurt for me, but they will not hurt because I have placed daggers in them. They will not hurt because I've pierced their hearts in a mean and malicious way. So I could not write my biography then. I could not write my life story then. So I asked for the reprieve, and God was so gracious, and He allowed me the reprieve. He allowed me to do something else, and then I wrote my book of testimonies, Faith at Work. But it took years for me to even get that one out, because I was still battling with some pains, and one of those pains, as I said before, was depression. And for years I had it, I just didn't realize what it was. I didn't know that that feeling of despair and darkness, and as if I were drowning, was depression. I did not realize that that's what it was until my first marriage ended, well, right before it ended, I should say. I went to a therapist, and I began to speak to her about what was going on in my life, and how I was feeling about it. And she diagnosed me at that point with depression. She said, "What you're feeling is depression." And I was also at that time having, and I did not mention this in the article in the blog, but I was also at that time having anxiety attacks, panic attacks. And she was a great listener. She heard everything I said, and she gave me the diagnosis, and that was it. That was it. I think at that time she wanted to give me medication, but I refused it. And she talked about some alternate ways of dealing with my depression and alternate ways of dealing with my panic attacks. And to a degree, those things helped. To a degree, they helped. But what helped me the most was God, was prayer, was allowing myself to be vulnerable with God. He already knows everything that's going on with me. But the fact that I could actually speak those things out and go to him in prayer and say, "Look, I need help with this. I can't do this on my own. And I need you to fix this." Being able to do that and being open and honest with him about it, although, of course, as I said, he knew these things already, helped me to begin the healing process. Or so I thought I was beginning the healing process. But a lot of the decisions that I made at my life and with my life at that time proved that I was not really healing. And it wasn't because I wasn't capable of healing. It wasn't because the healing wasn't there. It was because I chose to remain in that place of pain because it had become comfortable for me. It allowed me just to say, I don't have to take responsibility for what I'm doing. I'll just blame it on the pain, the depression. But that's not the way that I can justify living my life. I can't do that. For years, before I was diagnosed, I did not, like I said before, know what it really was. So I walked around as if everything was okay and tried to, for years I thought I was just a little sad and didn't really know what label to put on it. And like I said, walked around as if everything was okay, but it really wasn't. It really wasn't okay. I still had the feeling of darkness. I still had the feeling of despair, and as if nothing was going to go all right. So I had to figure out a better way to deal with that. And I did eventually, after the first marriage ended, I did eventually go back to that counselor, and that's when she prescribed medication. And the medication worked in that it numbed the feeling of depression. It put me to sleep. It did not help. And I'm not saying that it won't help others, and it probably has helped others, but it did not help me. So I stopped taking it and found a natural way to deal with it, to deal with depression, because it's a chemical imbalance to some extent. So I found something natural to work with it and prayed, and eventually did really begin that road to recovery, truly began that road to healing, truly began that road to being all right with life again. And then life happened again, and I began to once again walk around as if everything was okay when it really wasn't. Suffered a lot of loss over the last few years, family members passing away, including my mother, losing a steady job, losing finances, and I walked around as if everything was okay. People would look at me and think that things were fine, but really they were not. And I began feeling the twinges of depression again. And it was time for me to figure out what I wanted to do. Because how can I, as a coach in any capacity, help others if I have not yet figured out how to help myself? If I have not yet healed myself. And when I say healed myself, I don't mean doing the work all myself. I mean actually getting the help that I need to become a better person, to be drawn out of the depression, to live in my purpose, and to live a fulfilled life. How can I help anyone else if I'm not doing those very same things that I would direct others to do? So I had to put a lot of things on hold so that I could heal. And I'm still working through that process. I'm still seeking the right help for that. And trying to be a better person, because I want to live in my purpose. I want to live out my full potential. I don't want to die with all of that still in me. I don't want to die knowing that there was more that I could have done. As I said, my purpose is to help and encourage and uplift, and I don't want to die with any of that in me. This last year has shown me, it was another wake-up call. It has shown me that there is still much more life to live, and that I still have much more to do. So even though I feel, again, the twinges of depression trying to creep in, I've already begun the search for assistance so that I can get a handle on it before it becomes that full-blown depression like it was before. Like I say in the blog, that it had me in the bed for a year. And that was the most unproductive, unfulfilling, miserable year of my life. And I don't want that again. So what I'm saying is, if you are in that, if you are feeling that, if you believe that you have this feeling on you and you don't know how to label it, you don't know what it really is, you don't feel like yourself, whatever yourself truly is, seek help. Get help. I've got another video where I actually entitled that, Get Help, because that one also deals with depression. But yeah, get some help. So for me, this was a place of pain. Depression is a place of pain. All of the other things that happened in my life prior to me realizing what pain is, or what this depression was, putting a final label on it, and all of the things that have happened to me since that label has been placed on it, were painful things. So a lot of those things were very painful. But depression has been one of the biggest, I don't know what to call it, one of the biggest, thank you, husband, one of the biggest obstacles or hurdles that I've had to overcome. And I'm still a work in progress. Still a work in progress. So with that, peace and blessings. Remember to walk in your purpose, and know that I appreciate you.